introduction for analytical centrifuge, right? So the word itself tells you it is not just meant for preparative, right? You have ultracentrifuge which can be used for preparation purpose, so preparative ultracentrifuge, but here it is analytical ultracentrifuge, right? So it is not just for sedimentation or removal of water from the material or selective uh, component to be separated by sedimentation principle, but it is about analyzing the sedimenting particle. All right. So with the help of sedimentation behavior, the way that particle moves and sediments is utilized to characterize the molecule. So when I say analytical ultracentrifuge, what we are going to measure, because in the given solvent system, say for example water aqueous system, water based system, aqueous system, the particle is sedimenting. Say example, it is buffer, it is some solution, it is cell extract, so on and so forth. So hydrodynamic properties which we are going to learn, and that will reflect upon the basic properties of the analyte under study. So sedimentation is taking place, and at the same time diffusion due to convection currents, wall effects, all these things we have talked about. So when the particle is under applied force, it is going to get directed outwards for precipitation, right? The molecule will be moving towards the outer boundary of this centrifuge cell, and then it will slide down the walls of the cell and it will sediment. That is how it goes, right? So when you are talking about uh, all these properties, of course the factors contributing to the sedimentation we have learned, same is to be taken into consideration here also. The mass, the density of the material under sedimentation, the size and shape of the material under sedimentation, the density of the suspending media, the viscosity of the suspending media. It's not only about the speed of the centrifuge that you have started it with, or the only rotor that you have selected, but the concerns are all these factors which contribute to the sedimentation rate. So when it comes to analytical ultracentrifuge, these factors are going to be important. So with the help of this, we can mm, characterize the molecule, say molecular weight, diffusion sedimentation coefficients, buoyancy, density, then a refractive index of the particle would be the first thing that would be making it possible to characterize the molecule, right? So second is, when you are talking about characterizing the molecule, are you able to see the molecule? Who is seeing that molecule and how it is getting characterized? That is a concern. So surely there is a transparent window that is made up of quartz, for example, which is attached to the centrifuge rotor, and it is going to uh, help to characterize the molecule under study or analyte under study with the help of instruments which are based on optical principle. So optical measurements are done. So when your sample is moving, for example, under applied centrifugal force, then maybe UV light is passed through, and absorption of UV light or refractive index during high speed sedimentation is noted. So we will go to the details of it, but here in today's lecture, it is just introduction about the entire instrument and its working. So when we talk about preparative centrifuges, large volumes are required to separate the components in enough quantity. So depending upon the quantity required and your experiment, you have to design the entire experiment, right? So the volume of the sample to be separated, etc. But when it comes to characterization of an analyte using analytical ultracentrifuge, very small volumes of the sample are required, as less as 5 microliter would be enough to characterize that analyte. So general two types of experiments are conducted in an analytical ultracentrifuge, which is going to be useful in characterizing the analyte. One is detecting the sedimentation velocity, and another is detecting the sedimentation equilibrium. So when you are talking about sedimentation velocity, it is more common, right? So ultracentrifugation, of course, earlier it was very much a common practice for determining sedimentation velocity. But the principal method is useful for determining molecular weights in the range of 1 to 10 kilodaltons. But it has got more applications beyond this. Say, for example, when any molecule, biological molecule, is going to interact with another molecule, like, say, example, substrate enzyme interaction, protein protein interaction, DNA protein interactions, etc. So, interaction between the macromolecules or ligand induced binding events, right, in enzymes or in any metabolic processes. So all these can be studied with the help of these analysis, because surely when any analyte molecule interacts with, say, ligand, or substrate interacts with enzyme, so the complex is formed, and the properties of the complex are going to be different from individual molecule, individual analyte. So protein and ligand, if for example they are binding, and when they are separate, their refractive indices and their moving speed, sedimentation, diffusion, all these things are going to be different than what when they form a complex. So complex is going to be a larger one as against individual entities. So all the properties are going to get altered, and that will be an indication that yes, the complex has been formed, or it has got converted into a product, and the complexing materials are separated, etc. So to study the biological processes, phenomena of interaction between different molecules, analytical ultracentrifuges are used. Now, when it comes to ultracentrifuge, which is for analytical purpose, it has applications in study of nanoparticles as well. So, reversible interactions, when you talk about, may it be nanoparticle based or may it be simple biological processes as it happening in the cell or outside the cell with the help of catalyst, proteins, DNA, etc. So that can be characterized, and the reversible interactions also can be quantified. So not only analysis that whether the product is formed or not, or there is ligand bound protein or not, or to the enzyme or not, DNA protein interaction has occurred, or any two other protein molecules, if they are interacting for some catalytic process or metabolic process, have they complexed or not. It's not the only application. Further, the application is quantification. So when you talk about analytical ultracentrifuge, we can get to know about the characteristics like density, mass, sedimentation coefficient, sedimentation velocity of the analyte. Also, we can get to know about interaction between the molecules. We can quantify those reactions, right? So these are the diverse fields where you can apply analytical ultracentrifuge, and all these applications are going to be useful in various disciplines and sciences. We will come to it one by one. Now, when it comes to centrifuge, another thing, in addition to the sample required, we said कि 5 microliter is more than enough. What rotor works for it? We have learned different types of rotors: fixed angle rotor, swinging bucket rotor. Then we have talked about zonal rotors, right? So what kind of rotors and what is the speed that is used? So yes, it is ultracentrifuge. So 60,000 RPM and above is going to be the speed, which is going to be equivalent to 250,000 G, RCF and RPM. Now you know about it. So maximum acceleration up to 250,000 G when you are applying the rotor for analytical ultracentrifuge. It is a non-destructive method. Your molecule is not processed at all. There are no differences or no degradation, no impairment to structure and functionality of the molecule. So yes, it is a non-destructive method for analysis. Now, when you are talking about molecular weights, you can characterize molecular weight of an analyte under study, and the range is between a Dalton to hundreds of megadalton. So diverse size molecules can be analyzed. As small as sucrose, and a particle smaller than 1 nanometer also can be separated and detected. That is the beauty of the instrument. That is very small quantity, very small size, and non-destructive method for complete characterization of an analyte under ultracentrifugation process. So when it comes to second point, that is diffusion coefficient, that can be measured for given analyte. Diffusion coefficient is going to be useful in characterizing the analyte, because diffusion is a phenomena which is going to be driven by two forces, the suspending media and the characteristics of the particle. So that diffusion, bigger the molecule, slow is the diffusion. Concentration is another factor in the diffusion. So which is going to be a characteristic feature of the analyte. So diffusion coefficient is important, and yes, it can be measured for every analyte under study based on the shape and the density of the analyte. So all this characterization is done when centrifugation is going on. The window is there which is attached to the instrument, and that instrument will be continuously analyzing the sedimenting particle. Right. Now, of course, the first principle which is of use here is no calibration using reference material is required. Whenever we talk about calibration, we talk about standard or reference. Even in colorimeter, you use reference material, or you use blank, right? You set the blank, then you go for reference. So a standard graph you have, and based on that, you identify the quantity of the analyte. Here, you don't need that. So no calibration using reference material is required to determine the dispersed properties of the analyte. That is another important thing. And many applications are there, as you can guess, in biology, biochemistry, polymer science, chemistry, colloidal sciences. I mean, molecules in which are in colloidal state, nano state also can be characterized. Now, I think you're getting what I'm talking about, right? The speed is okay, fine. Now, when you are talking about let's go for the design of the process and then the details on it. So when it comes to analytical ultracentrifuge, as you can guess, uh, the rotors and the analytical instrument that is attached to it are going to be important. So as I said earlier, 60,000 rpm is typically used. Rotor is going to spin at that rate, and it is connected with the instrument where optical principles are used. So there are two different optical systems which are commonly used. One is Rayleigh system and another is Keilerian system. These details we'll talk in the next lecture. You just remember the terms right now. So these two systems are there. You can attach a UV spectrophotometer also to the instrument, and you can get to know about the characteristics based on UV absorption and refractive indices, etc. So here, just one example I'm taking of the instrument, that is Optima TM XL-A. This is the brand name, right? It is just to make you introduce about such kind of information you will get on internet about different brands and different instruments which are available on the market. Please go through that those sites and see how the instrument looks like, right? So here, this is one brand, that is Beckman is one, as you know, Carter Beckman. So different instruments you will find. The concern here is how is the instrument, right? So it is about rotor we are talking. So 4-hole rotor. So you will find 6-hole, 4-hole rotors. Different designs of rotors are there. So here this instrument we are talking is with 4 holes. One of the hole is required for counterbalance. You know, in centrifugation, counterbalance is very essential. With its reference hole that provides calibration of radial distance, leaving 3 positions available for sample cell. Calibration is not with reference to sample, okay? Calibration is not to get the standard reference. It is just about the dimensions of the cell. So counterbalance cell is there, and other 3 cells are for loading the sample. So can you imagine a circle which is divided into 4 quadrants? One quadrant is the reference, and another 3 are the sample holders. So operation with multiple cell increases the number of samples that can be examined in a single experiment. So number of holes, number of chambers can be different depending on the rotor that you are going to use. For example, when several different concentrations of a self-associating material must be examined in order to check for the attainment of chemical equilibrium. So you need to handle number of samples at a time, and that is quite possible. So that is another, you can say, the beauty or uniqueness of analytical ultracentrifuge which have come on the market, like example say Optima TM XL1. So And it just no need to remember the brand name, okay? It is just for your practical information for practical knowledge. The critical component in the technique is addition of a transparent window which is required to see what is actually happening, so instrument will be seeing through it. The quartz or sapphire window is there. Centrifuge rotor is going to uh, be doing its job by rotating. So sedimentation is going on, and while sedimentation, the optical measurements are taken at the site itself, in situ optical measurements. Right. So sample movement is monitored, and for monitoring, you may use UV light. So UV absorption or refractive index during separation itself. When molecule is moving, is sedimenting, that time only you are characterizing it. So modern ultracentrifuges, when you talk, they have built-in optical systems, like as I said earlier, Relic system or Skylarian system or fluorescence systems, they are there, and based on the system used, the light source used, the optical system used, the detectors are there. Okay, so this is overview of the rotors that are required. Now this is how it would be if I take a cross section. This chamber is the one section of a centrifuge. So this is one cell of the centrifuge. Here is a small window, and here is the system which is capturing the absorbance, or the optical system is attached. This is the optical system, and it is attached to the instrument. This is the window through which the light will pass, and the molecule under study or analyte under study will be exposed to these lights, and the amount of light it absorbs, it scatters, it fluoresces will be collected here and analyzed. All right. So let's go to the details of the diagram. This is how the cross section would look. So this first part, if you see, is oblong structure, right? Can you imagine your centrifuge rotor, and it has got four chambers. Here it is another design where you have two chambers. One is reference chamber and another is sample chamber. If there would have been four chambers, one would have been reference, three would have been sample chambers, like that. So reference is for the volume, the distance, the radial distance, all these things need to be characterized for the given system. So that is the reference, and this is the sample chamber. So if you take the cross section of cell of an analytical ultracentrifuge, you will see such two cells, two parts in the cell. One is reference, another is sample. Now this is the light source, so it can be xenon light, it can be UV light. Whatever the optical system you have attached to that is going to require a light source. So this is the light which is going to be pass through the diffraction gratings. We will study about diffraction grating in details when we learn about spectrophotometer, but let me tell you, it is going to work like a prism which breaks the light into its component wavelengths, right? We know that. So diffraction gratings are going to be helpful in selecting a specific nanometer, specific wavelength, and that will be allowed to pass through. Now this is your centrifuge chamber, and this is the window. While sedimenting, the particle will be coming in this zone, and the light system which is attached to it will be characterizing it. So once the light falls onto the analyte, it will be reflected, refracted, diffracted, absorbance, whatever you are transmitted, whatever option you are choosing for characterization, that kind of data will be collected. So here is the light which is getting reflected from the sample, and it is going to the detector. So this schematic diagram represents the arrangement of analytical ultracentrifuge, right? So of course, whenever any particle is 5 microliter samples we are talking about, and 1 nanogram quantity we are talking about, so the signal which it is going to generate may be light absorbance, light transmittance, light reflectance, right, fluorescence, whatever it may be, right? That is going to be very, very, very minor, very less amount of signal is going to get generated. It won't be detected. So what you need is to enhance that signal, enhance the signal given by the instrument. Absorbance असेल, deflection असेल, fluorescence असेल, जो काय असेल, तो signal is going to be very weak because the quantity of analyte is very less. So that enhancement is done with the photomultiplier tube, which is going to magnify that signal, and then it will be analyzed. So this is the photomultiplier tube, okay, and this signal will be collected, and it will be uh, going to the detector system. So this is the light source, this is the diffraction grating from which the selected wavelength is allowed to enter the sample window. Sample window has got sample molecules which are under sedimentation. The particle which comes here will be exposed to that light, whatever is selected, xenon, mercury lamp, UV lamp, right? So to that, then whatever light is reflected, refracted, or fluorescence is there, that is going to be mm, measured. It will be measured after multiplication, so that light will be entering the photomultiplier tube first, and then it will be passing on to the detector system. So this is the cross section of the two cells of the rotor, right? So this is sample rotor, and this is the reference rotor cell. This is sample cell of the rotor, this is reference cell of the rotor, and in the sample cell has got the window. Window is going to allow the instrument optical system to characterize your analyte. So this diagram is very important and useful. Little magnified image, little colorful image that you can see here is, this is your centrifuge. These are the arrangements. As I told you, four hole system. The central hole is not the chamber, but it is the central shaft of the centrifuge. So in the center also you are seeing one circle that represents the shaft, right? But these four are the cells. So here four cell rotor is there. In this case 2 to 4 to 6 to 8. 8 cell rotor is there. Like that you have different designs available. Now whenever your sample analyte is here, this sample analyte can be analyzed with the help of the optical system. So how this optical system works? So this is a lamp which is going to generate the light source. The specific wavelength is selected. That wavelength is going to be allowed to enter the cell through the window, okay, the rotor cell through the window. But for that you are going to require optical systems like mirrors and diffraction gratings and prisms, so that that particular wavelength is collected and is directed onto the sample, right? And how much volume of that light is to be allowed into the sample can be controlled using a moving slit, right? If this is wide open, more amount of light will be entering. It is, if the slit is less open, more close, then very controlled quantity of light can pass through. So the slit distance also is very important. And then PMT is photomultiplier tube. So this is how is the mm, um, working of a optical system in association with the ultracentrifuge would be. So the sample is usually contained within a sector shaped cavity. Now sector, you understand, right? Sector is a triangular part, one quadrant of a circle or oblong structure, because your rotors are circular in design, and they are divided into sectors or cells. So what you have is the two thick windows of optical grade quartz. We talked about it. The cavity is produced in a centerpiece of aluminum alloy, reinforced epoxy, or a polymer known as KEIF. What it is? It is about the material that is used, so that you can know about, you can analyze the material. So what is the material used for designing rotors, that we have talked about earlier also. Here it is another thing, that is centerpiece. Centerpiece is the shaft on which the centrifuge rotor is going to be loaded. So it's an aluminum alloy, reinforced epoxy, or a polymer known as KEIF. So the flexibility is very required, balancing is required, sturdiness and strength is required. So considering that these materials are used, and you have a optical grade quartz or sapphire. Uh, so uh, this is one part. Then when we talk about the double sector centerpiece, here is another addition. So the optical length which is available, double sector, single sector, multiple sector, that is how, depending upon how many samples of one type you are in within one experiment you are handling, that can be varying, and based on that you can choose the type of the rotor system, how many sectors are there, right? So here we are talking about double sector system. For example, in case of Optima XLA, Just an example, we have taken this particular instrument brand, and the optical length is important. See, what is the distance that the light has to travel, the path length. Basic Beer-Lambert's law tells you that the path length is one of the important factor which is going to decide the optical distance the light has to pass, and depending on that, the concentration that is going to be detected, or material that is going to get characterized. Because Beer and Lambert's law, for example, says absorption is proportional to concentration, absorption is proportional to path length. So concentration is one type of analyte, its properties is important, but at the same time, the distance, the path length, of course, is going to be specific in each set of rotors that you select. But generally, what is it? How much is that? So it is about 3 to 12 millimeters. You can imagine how small that distance the light has to pass through. So path length is as short as zero point 0.1 millimeter. In colorimeter, the path length that you use is 1 centimeter. That is the dimension of the cuvette, right? So here it is as less as zero point 0.1 millimeter. So optical path length and selective wavelength are going to be very important depending upon the material or analyte to be characterized. You have to select the source of light, you have to select the wavelength from that, and you have to select the path length for the system. All right, so these are the few details. Now let's go to the next slide. When I talk about optical system, it is very important to choose the right optical system, and the arrangement of the optical system is there to determine what the concentration distribution within the sample during centrifugation. So, and at what rate the particle is sedimenting under given conditions. Under given conditions is the speed, the type of rotor, the type of solvent used, the parameters of the solvent, so on and so forth, is going to talk about the nature of the analyte. So this is going to be determined using the optical system. There are two spatial optical cells on the rotor. One is known as analytical cell, and the other is the reference cell. There are two spatial optical cells. One is analytical cell and another is reference cell, which is also called as counterpoise. What it is called as counterpoise. There are two holes, reference hole and the analytical sample hole, right? So two cells are there and two holes are there. The rotor chamber has upper or lower lens calibration of distance in the analytical cell. That is another part important. The rotor chamber has an, I'm sorry, it is typed twice. Excuse me, the same sentence. So a camera is attached, a camera lens is attached, and that is going to collect the data, and it is going to go to the photographic plate. So at the same time, you can get the real time pictures of the system. Right now, if this a light from the light source is coming through the bottom, the principle of the monitoring system is light, right? The light source is very important, which is going to enter from the bottom, and with the help of the principle of optical system, like say basic principle is absorbance, transmittance, Beer and Lambert's law as an example I talked to you. So that can be used. And ultraviolet absorption, maybe you are going to monitor for a given analyte. So you are going to note the difference in the absorptions, and then the ultraviolet absorption system is going to note the differences in the refractive indices. So what you are doing, you are passing the light, that is UV light, and the amount of UV light which is going to get absorbed is going to characterize the analyte on the basis of refractive index of the analyte. So differences in the refractive indices will be noted, and that is how you will be getting the information, like if the concentration is uniform, light will pass through it without any deviation, right? So if the concentration is not uniform, then you will get different density zones, and then the different kind of diffraction, that then the data will be telling you about this was the particle that is going away and sedimenting, and there is not a continuous zone. A continuous zone is initially there when the centrifugation has begun, but as it takes speed, sedimentation progresses, the particles will start separating and the zones will get generated. Right, within the zone also you can characterize whether it is uniform or it is deviating. It is based on the refractive index. So if the light that passes through the solution is of different density zones, then you will get to know about the different density zones will be dictated in terms of different refractive indices, right? So that of the solvent, that of the analyte, and different analytes. You are going to compare those refractive indices, and you will get to know about the deviation, right? Photographic plates also are there which are going to monitor, and it is going to do the real time scanning of the undergoing process, right? Now how it is going to take place. So this is your rotor, one side of it. This is the sample cell. This is the reference cell, right? The sample cell is having the sample. Initially, it is going to be uniform. As sedimentation progresses, particles will start sedimenting on the basis of their mass, density, etc. So here what you are seeing is the double sector centerpiece that we are discussing about double sector. So in one you have two, that is reference as well as sample cells in the sector. So this is one sector, this is another sector, sample sector and reference sector. So here when it is sedimentation is going on, the light which is going to scan your or the optical system which is going to scan the entire system or the entire process of sedimentation. So whatever particles come in the window zone, that will be characterized, and here is a kind of data that is going to get generated in the form of graph. So one example I'm showing you here is that of the absorbance, right? So you will get such peaks and such graphical representation. So first peak is going to be there, which is going to tell you about what it is. So your sample is there in the solvent, right? So you, as you see here, there are two peaks. One is the solvent peak and another is the sample peak. So this is the window from which you are going to collect this data, and such graphs are going to get generated. And then at the boundary region, what you see is this kind of exponential rise first and then plateauing. So this kind of initial graphical representation you will see, and as the sample starts getting separated, you will start getting different pattern generated. So this is initially what you have is sample meniscus, solvent meniscus, the boundary region, that is going to be expressed in the term of a graph. The graph would look like this. So this optical system is measuring the differences in the absorbance between the sample and the reference sector. So this is sample, this is reference sector. You see these dotted lines. It is connected to reference. This dotted line is connected to sample, between the sample and the reference, and double beam spectrophotometer is attached to this. So the differences in the sedimentation coefficient, differences in the diffusion coefficient will be calculated using the system, and you will get the data. At the same time, such graphical representation and real time scan of scan matlab the images also will be available. So here this is the schematic diagram that shows how a optical system will be characterizing your analyte under sedimentation. Now to little details, this is how two phenomena that we have to learn, that is sedimentation velocity and sedimentation equilibrium. So as you are seeing here, you have sedimentation velocity, and this is sedimentation equilibrium design. Now, can you see this is your reference cell, this is your sample. Initially, sample is uniformly distributed throughout, and this is the graph that you are going to get, right? So you are trying to find out the sedimentation velocity. So as you have seen in the previous graph, there are peaks. The first peak is of solvent, second peak is that of sample, and that sample peak will keep on moving as the sedimentation progresses. So and the concentration increase will tell you about, yes, the molecule is getting separated from the sample, and then the concentration will build up, and the graphical representation would be telling you, yes, the concentration is increasing. A time will come that molecule has got separated from the total mixture. That time the concentration will not increase and a plateau will come. Based on this data, with reference to time, you can calculate the velocity, sedimentation velocity of the analyte. Now here is another concept, sedimentation equilibrium. right? Can you compare the two sectors? One is the sample sector, another is the reference sector. The sample is loaded into the upper sector and the reference solution or the buffer is in the lower section, as you know. The sample is centrifuged at high rotational velocity. It will generate a boundary that will move towards the bottom of the cell, right? So here this will tell you about the sedimentation equilibrium. That is a parameter which is very important when you are characterizing an analyte. So this is 6 channel system, this is 2 channel system, right? You can see 6 cells here, 1 2 3 4 5 6. So this is 6 channel system. So it is going to tell you about the fundamental property, that is sedimentation equilibrium. And the data will be generated in the form of graph. Again, you can compare these two graphs, one telling you about the velocity, another is telling you about the equilibrium of the sedimentation process. So 3 sample reference pairs are there. So these are 3 samples and these are 3 reference. So these 3 pairs are there, sample reference pairs. How many are there? 3 pairs are there, which is centrifuge at a moderate rotational velocity, and it will be till equilibrium concentration gradients in each sample channel are generated. So this concept we will see in the next lecture in details. One last minute is remaining. If you have any queries, please do ask.